From the headquarters of Telesa English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Emike Omolu. Welcome. We start with the hurricane warning that's been issued to millions of people on the east coast of the United States. Weather experts say hurricane force winds will hit coastal areas in North and South Carolina in a few days. Residents are bracing themselves for massive flooding. Over 1 million people have been evacuated so far. A state of emergency has also been declared in Virginia and Maryland ahead of Florence's arrival. Residents in the Carolinas are boarding up their homes and stocking up on food, water and other essentials. Grocery shelves are empty and hardware stores are cramped with customers. Many gas stations are running low on fuel.
We're all very uncertain, but we're preparing. We're trying to help businesses get prepared. That's what we've been doing today. We're going to be working all day tomorrow up until the curfew to try to get everybody squared away, and hopefully we can all of Wilmington can stick together and let's fight this thing together. Everybody look out for everybody. That's what it's all about.
President Donald Trump promises to allocate any amount of money necessary to repair whatever damage is caused by the storm, but he has taken some flack for calling his administration's response to Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico a success. The Trump administration put the death toll at under 50. It's since been raised to nearly 3,000 after multiple studies found that there were hundreds of casualties after the hurricane from a lack of power and access to health care.
Well, I think Puerto Rico was incredibly successful. Puerto Rico was actually our toughest one of all because it's an island, so you can't truck things onto it, everything's by boat. We moved a hospital into Puerto Rico, a tremendous military hospital in the form of a ship, you know that. And I actually think, and the governor's been very nice, and if you ask the governor, he'll tell you what a great job. I think probably the hardest one we had by far was Puerto Rico because of the island nature. And I actually think it was one of the best jobs that's ever been done with respect to what this is all about.
The Caribbean is faring slightly better as Tropical Storm Isaac continues to weaken. The center of the storm is just east of Martinique. It's forecast to move across the Lesser Antilles into the eastern Caribbean Sea on Thursday. A tropical storm warning is in effect for Martinique, Guadeloupe and Dominica. Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit called on citizens to take all advisories seriously and to keep monitoring the developments.
We all have vividly in our memories what happened to us in respect to Hurricane Maria and the speed at which it moved from a Category 3 to a Category 5, which was the quickest in history, 36 minutes. And we all suffered at the hands of Hurricane Maria. So as far as the National Emergency Planning Organization is concerned, we are taking no chances, and we're leaving no stone unturned in respect to the preparation of the state, the country, and its citizens.
Brazil's jailed former president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has called on people to vote for Fernando Haddad in next month's presidential election. Leaders of the Workers' Party have decided unanimously to name Haddad as their candidate. Lula's final appeals to be allowed to stand were blocked by the Supreme Court at the weekend. Lula sent a letter from prison repeating his innocence and formally endorsing Haddad as his substitute.
Há mais de 5 meses estou preso injustamente.
I have been unjustly imprisoned for more than 5 months. I didn't commit any crime, and I was condemned by the press well before being tried. I continue to challenge the car wash prosecutors and Judge Sergio Moro and the Federal Regional Court of the 4th Region to show a single piece of evidence against me.
A apresentarem uma única prova.
That is why, from my heart, I want to ask all who will vote for me to vote for our friend Fernando Haddad for President of the Republic.
We will not accept a Brazil of the 19th or 18th century. We don't want an unequal Brazil. We will work together to build a new country. We are together here to fulfill this task, and we don't have any problems. We have the will to give back to Brazil. We count with each and every one of you. We will go to the streets, and on the 28th, we will celebrate Brazil's democracy. Long live democracy, Lula libre, and long live Brazil.
Andrew Vieira was in Curitiba for the announcement and has more in this report.
This year, September 11, is a historic day for the left in Brazil. After the courts prohibited Lula's candidacy, the Workers' Party has declared Fernando Haddad as its candidate for the national elections on October 7. So, Fernando Haddad and Manuela Dávila as vice president are the new candidates for the Workers' Party. They will bring Lula's vision to the people. Also, the Workers' Party continues its appeals through the courts in order to overturn Lula's conviction to set him free as soon as possible. The party states that Lula is innocent and that he is suffering a political, media and judicial witch hunt.
Andre Vieira reporting there. Unions in Argentina are gearing up for massive protests because of the ongoing financial crisis. Sabrina Roth explains.
On Wednesday, state workers are set to hold a national strike that will include mobilizations, roadblocks and countrywide gatherings to demand an end to the austerity policies established by President Mauricio Macri, which have worsened thanks to the deal the government made with the IMF. Unions announced they will march to the Treasury to demand an increase in wages to match protected inflation rates. Part of these projects is also calling attention to the issues of sovereignty, land exploitation and working conditions that several mines and nuclear power plants pose across the country, issues that have only worsened during Macri's administration.
An indefinite general strike in Costa Rica is expected to spread across the whole country. While the president says the movement is weakening, labor unions say it's getting stronger.
A school in San Jose was closed on Tuesday. Inside, 5 teachers were teaching out of the 20 that would be there on a regular basis. The Education Ministry announced 55% of schools were open. But before, the government had announced they will declare it illegal and that it has no force.
The movement has not had a major impact on public services. There have been isolated effects, but nothing major.
Costa Rica's trade unions contradicts the government and announces major strikes.
Actually, when we as electricity workers go on strike, we never paralyze the service. So that is not a fair example. We have never suspended the service.
They propose to open dialogue on the fiscal plan. They say the current text doesn't solve the country's problems, that it is a neoliberal project which protects those who have more.
We have asked for this fiscal plan to be withdrawn, and that talks should begin where all sectors are represented, so that we can develop the kind of fiscal reform that the people of Costa Rica deserve.
Municipal workers in the capital, San Jose, also confronted attacks by the media.
If the strike is not having any effect, then why so many threats? There's so many threats from the media and also from the government. But that doesn't stop us workers. If we weren't having an impact, there wouldn't be so many threats.
Unionists denounced the lack of dialogue in the country.
They will have to negotiate, because it's outrageous that President Carlos Alvarado and Foreign Minister Epsi Campbell give their support to the roadblocks in Nicaragua and put pressure on Ortega to open talks and negotiate, while here they refuse to talk and negotiate.
The strike will continue, and more sectors across the country are joining in this Wednesday.
Tens of thousands of people from dozens of indigenous communities in Guatemala have taken to the streets. They're protesting against President Jimmy Morales' suspension of the International Commission Against Impunity. 60 social movements are taking part in the week of action.
30 to 40,000 people from the 48 areas of the Totonicapán region have been peacefully protesting against the government of Jimmy Morales, and especially against impunity and injustice. The peaceful protests are concentrating in at least 4 strategic points of the Inter-American Highway that connects the Guatemalan capital with the South Mexican border. During these latest days of protest, all the different groups have included their demands and joined together in calling for the resignation of Jimmy Morales and to advocate for the continuity of the International Commission Against Impunity in Guatemala.
Santiago Baton reporting there. Well, fishing communities in Ecuador are the latest to be negatively affected by the government's austerity measures. They say they are taking on an unfair share of the burden, while large corporations and multinationals stand to avoid paying penalties.
Ecuador's government has announced new diesel prices. The shrimp and fishing sector will see an increase in their diesel costs, in line with the government's austerity measures.
Diesel for the tuna and shrimp industry increased only 25 cents on its VAT. For other fishing industries, there will only be a 10 cents increase. Those numbers will remain the same for the next 2 years.
For some analysts, the measure doesn't make sense because not everyone uses diesel. If they had really wanted to save money, they should have revised gas prices.
There might be speculation, and that is what the fish and shrimp industries are worried about. That will make them lose competitiveness. Those are exporting sector in Ecuador, as a dollarized economy, must support them. I don't understand why these subsidies aren't focused on the sectors that bring dollars to the country.
The government said they have spoken with the fishing sectors. However, local fishing sectors say this measure just benefits big industries and doesn't respect their work.
We haven't been part of any agreement to exchange an increase in gas prices for an extension of artisanal waters of over 800 nautical miles for industrial ships to sail without problem. I make this call because they are only bringing poverty to the fishing communities and artisanal fishing. They are allowing abuse against maritime resources.
In light of the recent economic measures implemented by President Lenin Moreno, several social and political sectors are calling for a demonstration on September 13. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Quito, Ecuador.
Right, time for a short break. Join us in about 1 minute.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on innovation, conservation, human well-being, and human rights. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with At the Moon. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body. Environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone. We defend the struggles of peoples in resistance fighting for their rights. Between Borders. All about equity, diversity, and respect for identity on By Gender. Every day we feature a wide variety of content. Only on Telesur, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. A group of Colombian senators has visited one of the areas where former FARC guerrillas are being reintroduced into civilian life. Here's Paulo Fernandez with the details.
Congress senators visited Miravalle as part of the Commission for Peace. They went there to see what are the opinions of the former combatants. They talked to Pablo Catatumbo, who said there is great concern that the only support they are receiving in these territories is international support and from the UN mission that has been working as an electoral observer since the implementation of the peace agreement began. The senators that went there said there is an important advancement, and they pointed out the work of the former combatants, especially with productive projects with farmers. But the support from the government is almost nil. They say they have abandoned the former combatants and also ethnic and campesino communities. They also brought up the security issue because the murders of social leaders continues, and military incursions near the places where the former combatants are continue. The movements are making a call for the government to advance in the implementation of the peace agreement, to work on the well-being of these communities, and to support their productive projects.
Paula Fernandez there. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has repeated his demand for compensation from Colombia. That is for the more than 5 million Colombian citizens residing in Venezuela. He was speaking at the closing of the 3rd Youth Congress of the United Socialist Party.
I have authorized the legal teams of the Republic to prepare a lawsuit against the Colombian government to demand compensation for the 5.6 million Colombians we have living in Venezuela. Pay us an indemnity in US dollars. We will take this to the international bodies, and I have put the Minister Jorge Rodriguez in charge of that.
Thousands of Venezuelans took to the streets on Tuesday to commemorate the coup in Chile and to reject U.S. intervention. It's after revelations that U.S. officials held secret meetings with Venezuelan military officers to discuss overthrowing President Nicolas Maduro. The allegations were made in the New York Times on Saturday.
We're here to support the revolution of Nicolás Maduro, and we say to Nicolás Maduro from here that he can count on our support. He can count on the people of Venezuela, and we'll always have our hand raised to defeat the empire that wants to rise up against the people of Venezuela.
Today, more than ever, the youth of Venezuela are telling President Nicolás Maduro to stay strong, and that we're with him and with the legacy of Comandante Chavez and with the revolution. While we're here, 1,000 empires would have to come to be able to defeat us.
Chileans have honored former President Salvador Allende, who died in the presidential palace on September 11, 1973. They are also demanding justice for the victims and disappeared of Pinochet's brutal regime. Nearly 3,200 people died or disappeared in political violence during the dictatorship. Another 28,000 were tortured.
Every September 11, Chile awakens more silent than usual, with the feeling that no matter how much time has passed, things are still not right.
Today is the anniversary of the military coup which put an end to democracy. I'm too young to give an informed opinion if the actions of that day were justified, but I believe that bombing the presidential palace is not the way to defend our nation.
There were so many detained, so many disappeared and tortured. Their family members joined the crowd of mourners.
I don't have a name for it. It was painful. I would be waiting to buy bread, and members of the military would attack us. There are so many more things not worth remembering.
What does today signify for you?
Pain. My dad was taken to the National Stadium, where so many people were killed.
Was your dad one of the many disappeared?
Yes, I still don't know where he is.
This is why memory matters, reconstructing the events of that day over and over again. Projects like Timeless Pictures represent this idea by merging historical pictures with current image. Many initiatives are defying difference and impunity traits, words that are becoming more frequent following the recent freeing of members of the Pinochet administration accused of murder and torture. Mireia and her brother's story are part of one of the most heartbreaking projects, a documentary that reconstructs his final moments as a prisoner in Dawson Island.
Our conviction remains strong despite the passage of time. Time will not lead to forgetting. It will only lead to the strengthening of our will for truth and justice for the victims.
Another art project being held this year is the digital recreation of the faces of those who were lost so their families may see how they could have aged. This is what they would look like today, they say, in between laughter and tears.
We are calling out impunity. There are those who walk away free of our suffering, free of losing loved ones. That can no longer be. My brother will never come back.
así que te lo lleven detenido y que nunca más sepas de él es muy fuerte.
Projects like this not only reveal the link families have with their lost loved ones, but the link a nation has with its past.
Dozens of demonstrators have also marked the anniversary in London. They protested outside the Chilean embassy. Many of the protesters were political prisoners under the dictatorship of Pinochet in Chile. They protested with messages embroidered onto patchworks which they prepared themselves. They also displayed the people who have disappeared.
I'm a former political prisoner of Pinochet's dictatorship. We are here with various Chileans that also arrived during my times who now have kids, and we are demanding the Chilean government to deliver justice for the victims who were assassinated and many just disappeared. I want to send a message to President Sebastián Piñera. I want to ask him to respect the international legislation. Why am I saying this? Well, because since Piñera became president, his government has freed various assassins that have committed grave crimes against humanity. We cannot allow that.
The reason we're here today outside the Chilean embassy, 45 years after the coup, is because even though we have democracy today in Chile, we've not had justice. We still have 3,000 people disappeared whose loved ones do not know where they are, how they were killed, have no gravestone to go and visit, to put flowers down. And for us it's very important that their memories aren't forgotten, that they're not lost.
And now for the first in a series of reports about how white-collar crime has marred politics in Central America. We go to El Salvador, where the former president, Elias Antonio Saca, is being prosecuted.
In the Isidro Menendez Judicial Center of San Salvador, a money laundering and embezzlement trial is underway. Elias Antonio Saca and 3 of his former cabinet secretaries are accused of siphoning off $301 million. The prosecution has negotiated an express trial with sentences of 5 to 10 years.
For the first time in this country, we will see a former president of the republic condemned, and we are sending a direct and concrete message for everyone to obey the law and to show that anyone in this country can be persecuted and found guilty.
Saca was president from 2004 to 2009, a period when former government officials and Arena Party members all benefited. Society is demanding that the prosecutor investigate those who receive these public funds.
On the one hand, there are individuals who got richer. There is also money that went to finance political parties, to finance campaigns. And of course, there is another part of the money that was used to favor part of the business class in the country.
The prosecutors raided several of the president's properties to recover some of the money from a so-called reserved presidential fund. Social movements believe that the deal between the prosecutor and Saca's defense allows other officials and members of his party off the hook.
It
was an institutionalized practice in Arena, and Saca's corruption directly involved the party. Saca was the president of the country and president of the party. Money from the presidency also went to the Arena party. The prosecutor's office talks of $7.6 million.
The court's verdict will reveal if those found guilty must return that money to the state, while the Attorney General's office plans to continue investigating those who benefited from the stolen money.
We'll take another short break now. Join us in a few moments.
So yeah, national security is one of the most powerful notions in modern times. To swindle, I think, people, to do things that are not in their best interest, and to support massive military complexes that are not in anybody's interest, but that are like cancers feeding on society, frankly.
Watch a series where the U.S. geopolitical strategies as an empire
representing the culture of war and propaganda are shown, and how this has served as a tool of social control. Psy-War. Saturday. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. An Arab League meeting in Egypt's capital has discussed the U.S. decision to cut funding for the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abdul Gate said the United States is trying to undermine the legitimacy of the agency. He added that the decision will not change the determination with which UNRWA serves Palestinian refugees. Last month, the U.S. State Department announced it would be withdrawing all funding to the agency.
The state of Palestine will find itself compelled to make difficult decisions in the face of this international negligence in seriously dealing with the affairs of the Palestinian people. We hope that these latest crazy steps by the U.S. administration will provoke the conscience of the world to act before it's too late.
Venezuela says it is optimistic about the benefits of cooperation with China. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez is in the country to spearhead new projects between the two nations.
This meeting was aimed at expanding cooperation, reinforcing projects, and planning new ones, according to the instructions President Maduro gave us. So this is a way for the Venezuelan people to reach welfare. Cooperation with China will benefit both peoples.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories, find them on our website at telesatv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesat English, I'm Emiko Molu, and thank you for watching.